Last Bite Productions presents The New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, including hobos, winos, and hookers. Listener discretion is advised.
However much you love me, that's how hard you hit me, okay?
I love you a lot.
Well, there. The harder you hit me, the more I know you love me.
My philosophy is to sleep late, drive fast, and not take any of this shit seriously.
Morning, Mr. Breakfast! Can I have that Mr. T cereal? Okay!
So, you the wizard?
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello, and welcome to The New Way podcast, coming to you from Last Pint Production Studios in Boynton Beach, Florida. This is The New Way, where we dissect pop culture so you don't have to. We have a packed studio tonight, and we have our co-host on the West Coast that likes the band Ghost.
Don't you forget about your friend Death. So Matthew Shank, ladies and gentlemen.
We do. We got Nick Santa Croce on the horn. I've got Ben Wilson to my left.
Sup.
And his obvious better half across from him on the couch not in the Nick seat. She showed deference to you, Nick, and said, I'm going to sit in the Beth seat. We have Beth Wilson on air today.
Say hi.
Well, I'm just actually a little surprised you haven't partitioned that part of the sofa off with a sign explicitly stating
Seats
no one
taken.
is to sit there. Yeah, it's like when they retired Lemmy's stool at Loaded.
How you doing tonight, Beth?
Oh, I'm great.
It's exciting to have Beth here live and not just on drops on the soundboard. It seems like Beth is with us on, I think, more
Or
shows.
is she?
You never know. She could be just very, very geared up here.
Next episode, Beth is just gonna sit over there, silent, except for her drops. She'll
I'll just have my own soundboard.
Yeah, just randomly interject her own drops.
This is our first episode back recording since we did our 100th, even though there was an episode in between. We had a lot of feedback from you guys about the 100th episode. We really appreciate it. I think everybody, there was really kind of fans of all different sides of it. A lot of people liked Ben's post-apocalyptic version of The New Way. Everyone loved Nick ripping on Ben in the Pretentious Cat song.
Is that pretentious?
No. The Ben's Pretentious, not the song. No. The song was adorable. It was precious. But everyone seemed to have a lot of thoughts on it and really, really liked it for the whole musical. So fun for you. It was fun for me, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Those of you out there, obviously, we are listening to thoughts, including our topic tonight, we'll get to in a little bit, came from one of our listeners. So just keep them coming.
If you tell us what you like, we'll say what you liked on the episode of The New Way.
That's right. We will talk about things that you liked, and you'll go, that was me. I did it. It's like the shake and bake, and you help.
That's how we get back to our fan base, Matt.
True. This is true. We have a couple things to get to. One is a little bit sad. And Ben let me know about this. I didn't know this happened a few months ago.
And Beth actually let me know about it before I let you know about it.
So a lot of you guys know. If you've been a long time listeners and fans, we have an affinity for Bud's Chicken and Seafood, and especially a rap song that they did that features a woman who.
Hey, Jay-Bird, what's the matter? What's going on?
I can't get comfortable. I can't sleep. I got a lot on my mind.
Just think of things that make you happy, like Bud's Chicken and Seafood. Jay, they got all the things you love. They got corn fritters, they have chicken fingers, they have cod, they have great French fries, they have coleslaw, baked beans, and don't forget, they do have the bird sauce.
That is Aunt Ann, who was a regular on the KVJ show, and unfortunately,
I thought she made pretzels.
That's Aunt Annie's. Very close, but she passed away in April. And I went to their actual their show website to like see if there was like a funny something from like their retrospective, but it was just really sad. Like they couldn't get through it, and I was like, oh man, like I don't. There's no way to play any of this on it, but we are obviously fans for this read right here.
Great French fries,
which is like the greatest way to possibly sell French fries you ever can. It's so mumbled and garbled,
and become like common modicum between all of us. Like
pretty much,
we know that. Do they have French fries? Or do they have great French fries?
Yeah, it's insane. But rest in peace, Ann. We barely knew you, but man, were you a part of our podcast for a brief run of it? And we will keep great French fries on the board and moving forward.
And I'll shed a single tear every time I eat a Bud's.
That's just right.
A Bud's piece of chicken,
or one of their hush puppies.
Their corn fritters.
The other one, this was just a random thing, and I was gonna just text this to you the other night, but it just made me laugh. I was flipping through the channels and going through like getting way high up in the movie channels, and all of a sudden I see this movie called Yo Robot, and I was like, what is this? Is this they make like a hip hop version of iRobot, and I realized it was just iRobot, but the Spanish version where yo is I, but it's just for just this smallest glimpse. I was so excited there was a movie called Yo Robot.
Robot.
I think
that's basically Chappie though.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
true.
I think if we do another musical episode, I want to write Yo Robot, which will be a modern hip version of iRobot.
And it has to be to the tune of Dianford.
Yes, exactly. They got to be more Dianford. Man, they scared me, dude. I still can't get through that movie because of them. But Yolandi Vissa.
Yolandi.
So, yeah.
Girl Yolandi. They're becoming quite the problematic band.
Oh, really? Why is this? This is, by the way, for everyone else out there, is this South African, like, what is their genre even?
It's hard to, I don't think you can really genreify them.
Trip hop?
Yeah, it's like
apartheid.
I
don't know.
Womp womp wah.
Sorry. Wow.
It's like,
Louise.
Matt's like, I know something about South Africa.
Yeah, listen. One of us works for a South African.
I'm joking.
And we begin our slow decline from episode 100.
We're only 2 in, and man, we've already fucked it up.
But yeah, I really don't know what you would classify them as. They kind of remind me of like LCD
Scary.
Sound System, but weirder.
Oh wow, that's the first one. I've never heard that before.
But weirder and like darker.
That's true for sure.
So what's going on with
Nightmare Fuel?
What's going on with their band that's problematic?
You should Google it because I'll get the facts wrong. But apparently, like Ninja invited this fan from a different country to come over, and then like she came back to the U.S. and claimed that like he was keeping her there against her will, and he was saying she was just a friend. It's like they deleted their Instagram for a month. So,
by the way, Nick, I do want to draw attention to something. So you have on Skype. I didn't know this was a thing because it did it once on my Skype as well. But you have your background blurred, but it also keeps blurring your microphone, which makes it look like you have some sort of adult toy on your desk that we're not allowed to see because we're not of age.
Really, when he first came on, it just looked like
when he first came on.
But I like glanced over and looked away because I was like, what am I looking at? I thought.
It's a big silver dildo on Nick's.
Nick works for.
It was a good angle for like a classic dick pic.
Yeah.
Like classic.
Nick.
Man, my dick pics don't look anything like this.
I think it's because it's in the foreground. It looks so much bigger. Nick, what have you been taking? What supplements?
I don't feel I measure up to anyone anymore. Classic dick pic. That thing's bigger than his head. You know how
I will not be kink shamed by you guys.
These are the only. Now you know how I frame my dick pics that I send to my wife.
You know how in the old Punch-Out game, when the boxers would fall, their feet would be as tall as Mario because they didn't know how to like do perspectives in 8-bit. That's what I feel like I'm looking at here. You're for shortening. And the last thing to get to before we get into our topic, this was just I had sort of forgotten about this, and Ben reminded me, but I made a new Slurred Sophisticate for us based off of something that happened in the last episode because I was just curious to see what it might sound like. So let's have a listen to this one here. Welcome to another edition of the Slurred Sophisticate, where we slow down portions of a podcast you probably didn't listen to in order to make it funnier. So, without further ado, please enjoy the Slurred Sophisticate.
I'm gonna be real honest with you. I spent a solid hour trying to wedge Rachel McAdams in Mean Girls into this.
Ooh.
It's not a bad one.
No.
Because
although Lohan and me, excuse me.
Whoa!
Excuse me. That was my Lindsay Lohan. That was my Lindsay Lohan. There is no Dana, only Sewell. Anyhow. This has been another rousing edition of the Slurred Sophisticate. Another one of our Slurred Sophisticates. Time for more shenanigans.
Why even record the end tag if you're just gonna talk over it? Man?
Oh, I didn't mean to be. I was gonna take it off actually, to be honest. So it's just
Are the Slurred Sophisticates getting longer? Are you stretching out the song?
No, they're all
audio.
They're all about the same. They're all one about 60 seconds of actual audio. Some of them longer.
Man.
Our Halloween ones are longer, but but if you did not listen to last episode, that bit actually might even be funnier just played in normal speed. But that's what happens when Matt gets a bad frog in his throat and Lindsay Lohan tries to climb out from inside of him.
Yeah, it was like something from a Ring movie.
Very
Lindsay Lohan was inside of him and climbed out through his mouth.
Just Ryan's. Whoa!
Stop trying to make Ringu happen.
But so
I was trying to pitch Ringu with Lindsay Lohan. God damn it!
So one of the last thing that kind of segs into our topic, and I really this can be even something that we talk about in the show, and I don't know if anyone picked this as their property, but. There is for those of you who don't know, there is a Netflix prequel series on air right now for the Dark Crystal. And our topic tonight is about revisiting childhood movies, kind of with adult eyes and thinking about them in the idea of would you maybe show them to a kid today? When did you watch them? What did you get from them then versus what you get from them now? How do they hold up? And that kind of stuff. The Dark Crystal, I don't know. Did anyone put Dark Crystal on their list?
Well, I put it on a list to just briefly mention.
Okay,
but yeah, I remember just being scared by that movie when I was a kid.
Oh yes, it is terrifying in almost every way that it can be, and that was largely it was Jim Henson that basically said kids like to be scared. It was him and Frank Oz co-directed. That movie, with basically Henson handling the direction of the puppeteering and Frank Oz handling like the voice and character work of that stuff, which is really kind of fascinating to see how they did that. And also, there were a lot of facts I learned kind of looking up on Dark Crystal. When they shot it, they originally shot it with only the Gelflings speaking English. All of the other characters were speaking a made-up language. So when they wrote the script, because it was too confusing for everyone, so they turned it to English. They had to match the voice, the puppeteering for a fake language with lines that made sense.
And they'd already filmed it, is what you're saying.
They had already filmed it and then they did a test screening, and they're like, no one understood anything that was happening, and so they were gonna like subtitle stuff, and like it's just not working. So they redid it.
Wow.
They redubbed the whole movie.
That must have been like trying to find your way out of a labyrinth.
There we go. Well, and that's kind of interesting. I had not rewatched Dark Crystal in many, many years. I think because I liked Labyrinth better as a kid. It was more approachable. It was funnier.
And it had Jennifer Connelly in it.
It did, and David Bowie's Bulge, and a lot of things going for it. So I had not watched Dark Crystal in forever, and I watched it, and then I slammed through the 10 episodes of the prequel series because it is phenomenally good. And I just want to play you one quick thing from it. So if you remember the old Dark Crystal, there's a character, the main Skeksis that exists is the Chamberlain. Had this kind of high pitched voice. He sounded like this.
Stay, friend. Prophecy.
Right.
Prophecy caused all this trouble. That prophecy?
And he made these kind of sounds. In this one, he is
Dobby,
played,
you're alive?
Yeah, he's played by Simon Pegg and sounds nothing like Simon Pegg. He does an amazing job.
Chamberlain must be punished.
I deserve to be punished. Flog me. Scold me. I am riddled with shame. Such shame. If only I had arrived in lab sooner. By time I got there, too late. Filthy gelfling, stolen vile.
He's unrecognizable. It took me, I didn't know until like 2 episodes in that that's who he was playing. I'm like, where the hell is he showing up in this? He sounds nothing like himself. He's phenomenal, and it's an amazing series.
I'm excited. Like I said, I'm interested in watching it, but I do need to watch the original Dark Crystal, which I have not seen since I was a kid. So
yeah, it is. I mean, it really pays its dues to just feel like it's in the same universe. 100%.
So, question, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Now that you're an adult, do you feel like that is a little too adult theme for kids?
Dark Crystal, I would say the hardest part about Dark Crystal is it's kind of confusing. Like, even as an adult watching it, I'm like, okay, who's what, who's where, what are the mystics, how do they align with the Skeksis, where do the Gelflings fit in, what are the other creatures? There's a lot of confusion, and it gets even more confusing, I will say, in the prequel series is way more mapped out, like a true Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing. But
interesting.
All right, Nick and Beth are having some sort of weird screen flirtation here, and I can't take my eyes off of it. It's like I'm watching a porno.
I
but
forgot Matt could see.
I'm just watching all of us trying to. I mean, Beth is very small up there.
Bored.
Well, I'm sorry that you got bored.
I'm more of a labyrinth man. I tried to deftly steer the conversation, and you weren't having it.
I agree. No, I agree. I just wanted to recommend everyone out there watch the new series. It is done with love and care, which not that many things sometimes feel like they are.
Did Louis Leterrier do the entire series?
Yep, directed every single episode and killed it. Just killed it. So Beth, we were talking. We were going to go into these kids movies. You were kind of talking about a game that we might play, where Beth is going to read us a synopsis of a kids movie, and we have to guess which movie she's talking about. Do you guys want to play a little round of Do We Know It?
Do I?
All right. I have one. I started taking some screenshots of some. Some of these are kind of general, so I think that because I know we did one that I tested and that was a giveaway, but this one may be a little more difficult. Designed to penetrate gently but deeply into a horse's body, working places not easily reached with massage, lasers, or other methods.
Do you know what that one is,
Black
Nick?
Beauty.
Oh, it could be Black Beauty.
No,
is it Black Beauty?
No. It was definitely the Black Stallion.
Ah, damn it. That's right. It is the Black
Mr.
Stallion.
Ed goes to Hawaii.
Weekend at Bernie's.
All right, we got that out of the way.
Okay, that's a one-time.
Sure, it won't come out again.
Okay, here's a movie. A young girl on the threshold of her teen years finds her life turning upside down when she is accompanied by an unlikely friend.
Labyrinth. Bing, 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 Labyrinth.
Drop Dead Fred.
Oh, that's a good one. Ben, what's your guess?
But wait, he said. I thought it was the first person that chimed in. You said
none
yes
of these
no.
are right. So what's your guess?
Alice in Wonderland.
I'll start giving you some more details, but
My Girl.
It is My Girl.
Oh, damn it! Fucking My Girl.
Yeah.
All right. I think this
That's
one.
how the song goes.
I think this one will be pretty.
Fucking My Girl.
Oh, let's see. I loved this movie. Let's see if you guys can get it. A homeless man and his young companion who survive by conning people meet a woman who may need them even more than they need her.
Down and Out in Beverly Hills?
No.
A homeless man. Read it again.
A homeless man and his young companion who survive by conning people meet a woman who may need them even more than they need her.
The Wizard?
What was that?
He said The Wizard.
I thought he said The Wistard.
No, Ben, do you have any
Is
guesses?
this the Mikey?
Ooh, I love that movie too.
Is it? Does it star Nick Nolte?
No.
Oh.
We weren't talking about the same. I think you were talking about Life with Mikey, which
Yeah,
I love.
yeah. There's another one.
Yeah,
like that.
I
don't know.
Nothing's
Is this the one where Will Smith plays the violin player?
No, this came out in 1991.
Oh.
Starring, what's that dude's name?
Yeah, who's in
it's
it?
a John Hughes movie.
Oh, Only the Old Lonely.
No.
So, shit.
It's Curly Sue.
Oh, Curly Sue.
Curly Sue. God damn it.
Wow.
I love Curly Sue. I really did.
I was, 12 years old when that movie came out.
Okay, I have another one.
All right. These are hard.
Well, because they're probably more movies that are my speed and not things you were watching. I watched.
I
This
said
movie.
I love Curly Sue, okay? I loved it. It was a momentary lapse. It won't happen again.
I loved Curly Sue. So I watched this movie a lot. Definitely very inappropriate for me. An unconventional single mother relocates with her 2 daughters to a small Massachusetts town in 1963, where a number of yes.
Yeah, Mermaids. I know that one. That's from my childhood a little bit.
I would have gotten that in a second.
That came out in 90.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
Interesting.
Winona Ryder and Christina Ricci.
Christina Ricci was like
My age.
5. She was
my
like
age.
5 years old.
She was
in that
my
movie.
age in that movie. She was a kid like I was.
Okay, I have one last one. I took a screenshot.
She was not
of.
being name checked in Atmosphere songs yet.
Let's see this one. This one I think Nick can get.
I can get it. Just believe in me. I just need one person to believe in me.
Curly Sue.
Okay. A babysitter must battle her way through the big city after being stranded
Adventures
there.
in Babysitting,
There
right?
you go.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite kids movie from the 80s.
But I got it.
You did. You
Hey,
did.
Beth.
I thought that was too easy.
Who wins in a cage match between Karina and Curly Sue?
Ooh.
Death match. Anything goes.
If it's a death match, anything goes. Off the top rope comes my little princess.
I think it's still Curly Sue, right? Who is in Karina? Was that Ray Liotta?
Did he play Karina or Karina?
Well, it's like Ray Liotta
and Academy
Whoopi
Award winner.
Goldberg,
Whoopi.
right?
Whoop! Actually won the Oscar.
For that movie?
Yeah, she won the Oscar for
Ghost.
For was it Ghost?
Fried green
Yeah.
tomatoes.
Ghost was definitely a movie from my childhood.
We are mixing up 1,000 movies right now.
Can we pull back just a little bit?
Can
now?
you cut this? Cut this part.
And
Do you want to pull it back or do you want to cut it? We're going for the bris or are we going for the unveiling?
I want to pull it back.
All
I
right.
want to talk some about this because I want to talk about some parameters about what we consider our childhood. Like what do we consider our childhood movies? Like what are the things that we watch? Because Matt is just a couple years older than all of us.
A couple?
So it makes it really does make a huge difference of the stuff I would have been watching regularly early on. And one of the things I was curious about what you guys are going to do, I picked movies that were made for kids, not movies that necessarily we would watch in our childhood.
So here's kind of what I was thinking about as we were talking about the subject. And one of the reasons why I really wanted Beth on the podcast is I knew from right when I first started dating Beth, all of her favorite movies are pretty much from her childhood. Like if she had to say, name her top 5 movies.
No, not my top.
I would say of your top 5 movies, 2 or 3 of them are from your childhood. Would you not say so?
Maybe 2.
Yeah, at least. Okay, so I know your favorite movie is. So anyways, I was like, but you have an affinity for a lot of those movies, especially like, the sports movies of the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that were centered around kids and stuff like that. And I was like, so I knew I wanted to have you on here because you'd have a great perspective because you have an affinity for that. And knowing that we have kids is revisiting some of those and having watched some of those now with the kids, I think it gives a little extra perspective. But what you were saying, Matt, that I think is interesting is I think that there are 2 separate kind of ideas as far as was the movie made for a family audience? Like, what is it designed for a family audience, which I subcategorized, which I assume that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there were movies that were made for a wider audience that became sort of like commonly known as innocuous and okay for children.
Sure.
Because there were movies I saw as a very young child that every kid had seen. Every kid had seen. And those I can revisit and say, no, those were movies made for at least adults.
Yeah,
or
like
for a
Field of Dreams is a good example. Like
I would say like Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Gremlins, Beetlejuice, most of the John Hughes movies. I mean, those were all made for adults or for a more adult audience.
Yes.
However, every kid saw them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we can kind of extricate those, I feel like. But I think it is interesting that we had seen all of those movies as kids, like at a very young age.
But there was like less cable, there just weren't as many options.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you just watched, and your parents would rent the video from like the movie store, and then you all watched the same thing.
And they were like, oh, hey, this one's PG. You can watch it, I guess.
Yeah. Like my grandma would literally put her hand over my eyes in front of like sex scenes.
It's really funny because you bring up the exact time. So I was talking to some of the people on my group today I was like, oh, we're recording tonight, Mark, and I was talking specifically to Mark, who had suggested the topic to us, and his main one that he was kind of angling towards was Goonies, mainly because he's like, oh, we thought about most of the scenes in it, and we thought they were okay for the kids until we forgot about Mouth telling the maid that there's a sex dungeon in the mom's basement of the house.
How old are their kids?
I want to say they're a little older than yours, but not like, but like a year.
The first
one might be younger.
The first drawer is the marijuana. The second is the cocaine, and the third is the heroin. Or whatever.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of like crazy stuff in there, and so then Mark also said like Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice. He mentioned those, and I go and Gremlins. I go I don't consider those because they're not. Yes, we all saw them, but they were not made for us. Gremlins is close because the Mogwai.
Gremlins is also.
Wait, hold on, I'm missing Nick's audio. Nick, can you speak?
Just wanted to make sure you're ready for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now we can.
Ready?
You just
go for it now.
I'd much rather have my kids learn about drugs from Corey Feldman than the dangerous playground. Wait, that didn't come out from the Goonies. Watching the Goonies. It was the last time they didn't talk down to children. They, it had a little bite to it. They assumed that the children were gonna be fine after they got out of they were maybe a little more mature, a little more world weary.
I just remember as a kid even getting that it was a joke then, and not thinking that it was like inappropriate. And we rewatched it. I mean, we've watched it a few times with my kids. I just keep making them watch it, hoping that they will fall in love with it. But the first time they watched it, they were scared. And then I kind of had to take a step back and realize, oh, this movie could be kind of scary if you don't know what's coming. These like kids are kidnapped.
Sure.
And they're like lost in a dungeon, and there's skeletons and like booby traps. And and so the girls were legitimately like creeped out, and that was weird.
But it has been interesting kind of traversing our old catalog and some of the movies we have watched with the kids and some of the movies that we've chosen not to watch. But I figured getting your perspective on a couple of movies first, maybe Matt and Nick, because I'm not sure. Did you get to watch anything, Nick, recently? Like, we only chose this topic a couple days ago, but I think we watched a movie last night, which we'll shed some light on in a little bit.
And we watched a movie with Matt the other day.
Yes.
That's true. That's also...
Which I had some issues with.
Me too.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, I didn't watch anything specific. I didn't really know what the topic was until about 10 minutes ago. Now I think I understand a little more. The text thread that we had were a little conflicting, but the first thing I think of is definitely the Chipmunk Adventure, and we watched that, Matt.
We did.
Would you show that to a kid? I mean, that's a classic example of I don't think they would understand it on a literal level, but it's pretty subversive. Like way more than I remembered it being.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that is overt, and I think that's a good. It's a good point to discuss in these movies. Is that part of it is if it's going to go over their head, does it matter, right? If it's going to be something they don't get and it's built for somebody else, which Pixar does a good job of that nowadays, of like jokes for different audiences.
I think it's also why parents allowed us to watch some of those more kind of adult-oriented movies when we were kids. Like, they're not going to get the joke in Ghostbusters when she's like, I want you inside me. I mean, like, I didn't get that joke until I was in like middle school. I was just like, oh my God, this is a sex joke.
I had to write a book report to see Jurassic Park chaperoned.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's like, Ben.
Well,
sorry,
Beth, you had an interesting perspective, and I watched. So we all watched The Sandlot while we were waiting for a hurricane to potentially make landfall here. And Beth, I know what you said to me is talking about how you have a very keen eye now for watching bullying and kind of meanness in some of these movies. Mm-hmm. So I was definitely on alert for that watching Sandlot, and I'm assuming you probably had some issues with a couple moments in that movie.
My biggest issue watching my daughters watch that is when they insult someone and say, you play ball like a girl. Mm-hmm. And when, we watched that in the preview because...
Right.
Yeah. Oh, God.
We watched the preview to see if my kids wanted to watch it. And I cringed then, and then I cringed again. And I was like, do I say anything? And just thinking about... they probably don't even think anything of that. But then just like that internalized thing, because I really do just try to build them up so much. And when they try to talk about, oh, I can't do this because I'm a girl, or he can't do that because he's a boy. And, I'm just always like, oh, you can do anything.
Which,
you can do anything.
Now, in retrospect, because we've also watched The Mighty Ducks, and I think the Mighty Ducks did a much better job of kind of equalizing that, because at least they had the point that you could make that girls can play as well as guys.
I mean, here's the fact about Sandlot. There's two
girls could be super boyish, macho versions of what we as a society see as masculine.
Yeah. And the issue with Sandlot also is that there are two female characters in the entire movie. One is his mom, and one is a sex object that he literally Me Too's for to Cheers,
and
which
then
is
marries her and has 9 children.
Yeah, it's a real bad lesson to kids of like, hey, if you just try to like force yourself on somebody, they'll probably wind up marrying you at the end of the day.
And it's cringy, but it's still funny.
Just rename this the woke podcast.
But here, I think the difference though with the Sandlot is that, and especially for me, I was 15 when that movie came out, and I knew it was a kid's movie, but I knew it looked funny. And I watched it. A bunch of us watched it. And we're like, this is actually a really funny movie. As a teenager, I found it funny. It wasn't something as a kid. It wasn't during my like, formative years that I was watching it that I was getting a lesson from it. It was just a goofy comedy. But
like a Goofy movie?
Yes. Are we gonna? Is Goofy movie on your list, Nick?
Oh, that's 100% safe for kids. It's amazing. And it holds up. It super holds up. I was so happy. I saw it a couple years ago again, and the music is so good.
Powerline.
Nick, what
I
about?
don't think I've ever watched that.
Oh wow!
But I know is Max in that?
Yes.
I know Max is like a sex object in the cartoon world.
What?
Wait, what?
You didn't know, right?
What?
Max?
No.
He's
what?
hot.
You're blowing minds here.
Idea.
He's
That's
a kid.
crazy.
He's a dog child.
He's a hot dog.
He's a hot dog child.
Hot dog, hot dig it. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
Google it.
What the fuck?
Google.
Are you
I bet
about?
you could find some weird stuff with Max on the internet.
I'm so surprised. I had no idea.
I thought you were
You're
hip to all of
this
the...
is my shocked face.
All right, I'm Googling right now Max Goof Troop sexy.
No.
It's going to be with Roxanne. It's probably going to be with Roxanne, his love interest in the Goofy
No,
movie.
what's the... Oh, no.
You like that?
Here's... put it up for everybody else. Hold on. How do I make this a thing? Wait, hold
This
on.
is not good radio.
This is terrible radio, but it is funny for the rest of the people.
Hey, Nick, what about Space Jam?
Oh, it's just a dig at Space Jam. Do you want to have a thoughtful conversation, or is this just you wanting to
Is
throw
that
some
really
dirt
Max,
on Space
though?
Jam?
Is that what he looks like?
No, that
I
was...
like Space Jam.
No. Go on with Space Jam.
Ben, do you only have one set of toes painted?
No, they're both painted. But
that one looks like it's not.
All right.
One's pink and one's purple.
Oh, okay, got it. The pink wasn't showing up very good in the camera. Space Jam isn't questionable. It's just hasn't aged well.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a difference there.
Yeah.
Do you mean that it's just not entertaining, or are there things in it that don't work for kids or are bad for kids?
It just
It uses a lot of the old cartoon tropes that don't really play nowadays.
Yeah, parts that you remember laughing at as a kid are just super cringy now and super 90s. And although Muggsy Bogues was in it, so there's that.
Well, so how about we talk about some of the films that we really can think back on now that we don't see being appropriate, like for specific reasons. And I think Beth brought up one that was obviously there for a family audience. I would say more than a kids audience, but I think one of the first things that we mentioned was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that movie is a great movie in the sense that what it is it's a rated R, hard R noir movie.
Is it an R?
No, I'm saying it's an R movie that's packaged as a kids movie. Is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got like a homicidal maniac.
He was so creepy.
Crazy violence. I mean, just insane violence. It has the femme fatale to end all femme fatales, I would say, at least in the animated form, maybe excluding Cool World. But
in the original one, there's a beaver shot.
World. Don't say Cool World in the same breath as Who Framed Roger Rabbit. How dare you?
I said only excluding the femme fatale. So
Hollywood, if she could, but she can't.
But you think about that movie now is like I'm not sure.
I wouldn't let our kids watch
we
it.
couldn't let our kids watch that movie.
I remember, weirdly enough, my mom hated that movie simply because she felt that it got too much credit for the combining live action. And she goes, they did that in Mary Poppins. I don't understand what the big deal is. And I'm like, they just killed that. They killed that cartoon and they put him in the dip. She's like, well, this is done in Mary Poppins.
They did that in Bedknobs and Broomsticks too.
Yeah, she was not impressed.
But only Roger Rabbit bumped the lamp. You guys know that story, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you watch that video?
The bumping of the lamp.
You'll like this. There's one scene where Eddie walks into a darkly lit room with just one overhead swinging light. And it's actually still when they walk in the room, he actually runs into it, makes the lamp swing from side to side, which meant that animators had to change the light on their animated character. The amount of extra work to sell that effect was immense, but the extra mile really got you in that world.
And now they use that.
Still call it.
Yeah, they use it for like any time something makes you like some small detail causes you a bunch of delays on stuff. I want to kind of hear more on your things because I approach this a little bit differently, and then I went and watched 3 movies I had not seen probably in.
You watched them all yesterday?
I did 2 last night and 1 right before you guys got here. So I needed the extra time in the afternoon.
What did you watch? We only watched one movie.
I watched Short Circuit. I did what I call the artificial intelligence trifecta. I watched Short Circuit, Daryl, and Space Camp were the 3 that I revisited.
Camp. I loved Space Camp.
I don't think I ever saw. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds right up my alley.
I'm gonna say this.
You would love Space Camp.
I'm gonna say this right now. 100% of the 3 movies I watched, the one that holds up even better than when I was a kid, and is maybe one of the best, looking back at it now, best kids movies, is Space Camp.
What happens? Tell me about it.
So Space Camp, unfortunately, came out at a terrible time. The premise is that a bunch of kind of it's Goonies and Breakfast Club, a ragtag group of kids. They go to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama, right? And the one kid played by a young Joaquin Phoenix when he was known as Leaf Phoenix, he's got this robot and he's disillusioned and he's like, all I want to do is go to space. And the robot's like, send Max to space, Jinx, send Max to space. He rigs it so that they go on this like test rocket thing where it actually takes them into space and they get stuck up there and they have to find their way back down.
Beth is taking notes.
Now, Space Camp, unfortunately, was scheduled to be released the same year that the Challenger shuttle exploded. And there's literally in the movie, there's pictures of Krista McCullough in the background of some of the characters. And what's so great about the movie is it's all young women that want to be pilots, that want to get on spaceships, and how they're challenged and what they're doing to overcome stereotypes and all kinds of things. It is the most empowering movie for something that came out in the 80s. Even the Kelly Preston character is played for laughs. She's like a valley girl, except she has a photographic memory. So she's super smart, but her brain's all like, she's kind of like Space Cadet, pardon the pun, because she's got so many things running around in her head that she remembers all the time.
Interesting. Well, since you're talking about it, what did you think about it from an adult perspective? I mean, saying it held up is different than saying it would be good enough for us to show to our kids too. Because listen, if it's good enough to show to our kids, then like this weekend we'll be like, hey girls, you're watching Space Camp.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. So I made like a list of things in it that are questionable. And there's just a couple things. The kids make more, they swear a little bit more. Lee Phoenix at one point calls these kids jerk-offs, but then also calls them monkey clones, which I thought was like a weird combination of like just, I didn't really understand it. I mean, I actually have a couple of, because the Jinx robot is probably the most polarizing thing in it. He's kind of like the Jar Jar Binks of the movie, and he plays very much towards the kids. But I remember, of course, I loved the robot as a kid. So this is Jinx.
You really need Jinx. You too, Max. Friends forever? Friends forever.
I'm starting to question this movie.
This, by the way, this is the most cloying, worst use of Jinx in the whole thing. But it makes
Jinx, voiced by a young Bill Hader.
I don't know why. I listened to this clip. I pulled it right before you guys got here, and I played it like 10 times. I don't know why it makes me laugh every time, but this is the most annoying Jinxes in the whole movie.
Where are Kevin and Catherine?
Kevin and Catherine are at Launchpad. It is a secret. Jinx! Max!
It's so stupid. So the Jinx is the only part of the movie. If you find another way for them to get into space, everything else is about they all have challenges in the beginning of the movie that they have to overcome the same challenges when they're in space. Yep. Every one of them, the one kid has his freak out moment where they're told they can't waste oxygen, and he like literally, it's this awesome shot where they're in the middle of the ship and it's just turning towards everyone, and they've just told them don't talk, and this guy's like, so I knew this kid once, and he goes into this monologue, and everyone's just like, Rudy, you gotta stop talking, we're wasting oxygen. And it's this I remember as a kid just being like, it made me really uncomfortable because there's that sense of danger. And then there's a whole scene that's straight out of Gravity. It's literally the chair with the boosters on it and people getting caught. And yes, the graphics obviously aren't as good as what Gravity is, but it is not bad. And by the way, you know who scored it? Fucking John Williams.
Oh, nice.
Like I think
I knew that.
I think you guys revisit Space Camp. It was the most enjoyable revisit of all the things I watched, for sure.
That's really encouraging. I remember really loving that movie, and I do not remember it very well.
It's so pro-female. It really is. It's awesome.
Well, that's cool. So you have that empowerment there. Now, if you could go to your second, or I would say your second most questionable, you explain that one, and then maybe Beth and I will talk about the one we watched last night.
I mean, Short Circuit is a mess of a movie from every possible way you could look at it.
I saw that right after college, I think, and I loved Short Circuit as a kid. But that movie you're right, exactly. It's all over the place. Like it's barely a cohesive narrative.
I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched the Aziz Ansari thing that he did with Fisher Stevens. So for those of you who don't know, Fisher Stevens plays an Indian man. He is not an Indian man. They put him in brown face, basically.
It's unbelievable. It's
I mean, if
watching
you want
that is unbelievable.
I mean,
it
this
really is.
I think this is.
Which was great. Oh, really? Tell me what happened. Well, we were interfacing, operating on the same wavelength.
Very good. My advice helped then. But what happened? Did she stick her tongue down your throat? No. Come on, sit in the van and tell me. I want to know. Yes, sir. Yes, come on, Newton. Oh my goodness, I am sporting a tremendous Woody right now.
That was nothing. I'm like, oh, he just literally said,
Ben Kingsley, he is not.
I am supporting a tremendous Woody right now. There are a lot of lines in that movie that are just terrible. There's also
Can you imagine like being at the round table, like, okay, so I guess we're gonna figure out who we're gonna cast for this. Like, oh, Fisher Stevens. Yes, he's a white guy, but he's immensely popular. It's gonna sell lots of tickets.
And it wasn't even that.
He's gonna be in such great movies.
It was sad for him too, because that's what the Aziz Ansari documentary is. He sits down with them and he's like, "What? Like, tell me about this thing." He goes, "I was a fucking young actor. I needed work. It was going to be a huge movie with Ali Sheedy and Steve Guttenberg, who at that time were gigantic fucking movie stars." And the guy had directed, the director is like not a hack director either. He directed Saturday Night Fever. He like had a bunch of hits under his belt. So he's like, I took a fucking role. Like, what was I going to do? It was the fucking 80s. And that's how they were casting it. It was going to be another white guy if it wasn't me, you know, like, which is shitty.
No, I was about to say, I mean, like, I made a Ben Kingsley joke, but I mean, Ben Kingsley was also a British guy who was cast as Gandhi. So, and won the Academy Award for it. And it's still one of the best performances, you know, of his career. But it's still a white guy from Britain being cast as Gandhi.
And then there's definitely the bad Howard the Duck vibe as well, where the robot's kind of like hot for Ali Sheedy,
Yeah.
and like nice software Stephanie, and there's a rapey boyfriend. Oh, but you will like this, Ben. I did not know this until I rewatched
Lemons,
it.
limes.
This is amazing. This is a sound effect from Short Circuit. Tell me if you can tell me what movie this stole the sound effect from.
That was totally Ghostbusters.
No, that's Short Circuit laser beam. Every single time it fires, that is.
Yeah, but it's the
proton pack firing up. They
yeah.
stole the exact sound effect of the proton pack, and
That's
it's all over the
crazy.
movie. All you hear is.
Did Columbia make Short Circuit? They're just sitting there, just like, just recycle it, just use it again.
I don't know, but I was like, "Fuck this!" It really bummed me out because as a kid, I fucking loved that movie.
When I was a kid, I watched Ghostbusters like every week, and I mean, I had that movie memorized from start to finish, and I never noticed that because I love Short Circuit.
But yeah, it's a terrible movie. It's aged terribly. Don't show it to anyone, and probably don't watch it again.
What are the movies that were there any movies that you watched over and over as a kid? Because I definitely had movies that I literally
Short
watched
Circuit's on my list. I watched a lot.
What about Bob?
The one I probably watched the most was Explorers.
Oh, so good.
Which I think actually has aged pretty well, except for a lot of the cursing and the beer drinking at the beginning.
Yeah.
Whereas they're just like stole beer from their dad's fridge to christen their flying vessel, and
They'll
just
take like one swig, right? And
well,
they,
yeah,
toss
but then
it,
they toss it or whatever. But it's still just like these are kids, and they're drinking beer. It's supposed to be this cool thing about christening the vessel. But that movie's so silly once it gets into space, it kind of turns into a different thing. And I think for the most part, aside from there being no real female characters except for the alien sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. If you guys haven't seen Explorers, there are aliens in it. It's about kids that go to space, just like Space Camp, but kind of different. But no, I watched that movie tons when I was a kid.
I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Oh,
We own
I
it.
love that movie.
It's so good. It's so good.
What about Monster Squad?
I have that on my list too. But
I mean, that really stands out as something that I couldn't wait to show my eventual kids Monster Squad, but I don't know. There are parts where Dracula's holding up that little girl by the neck and calls her a bitch.
There are kids smoking in it.
He's only doing that.
There's people are mean, very mean to each other.
Yeah.
They make fun of the fact, even though I mean, like there's some stuff about kind of the where they're trying to protect the fat kid, and that type of stuff. But there's still that whole thing with that kid that where he's kind of incessantly made fun of. There's some really bad, like adult Shane Black could be funny in a Die Hard movie lines that is in a movie that's made for kids. I will say though that I feel like Monster Squad was aiming for that demo of like 13, 14-year-olds and not so much like the 8 or 9-year-olds. And
that's fair.
And I think that does give it a little bit more of a pass.
Yeah.
Like looking at it from an adult standpoint, but I would never show that to my kids right now.
Well, I mean, in fairness, Dracula's only threatening that girl because she's a virgin, and he needs a virgin. So he got a 9-year-old because that was the only virgin left in town.
They were all virgins. But it's funny you mentioned the bullying thing. The bullying was almost a construct. Like, I went to schools where I never felt like I was bullied, and maybe that's just because I was very, very lucky, which is certainly, a possibility. But I feel like at one point, bullying was more prevalent in media and in television and film than it was in real life, because it just was a easy construct to create an easy setup with an easy payoff.
Sure.
My bullying was much more verbal, like just like I never thought I was gonna get beat up by a bully, but I saw fights even at the private school. I saw kids fight, but it was more just people being like mean.
I got punched by a bully for 3 years. From 3rd grade to 5th grade, and then I got him kicked out of school.
Just repeatedly for 3 years.
Just laugh.
Yeah, she did.
Jeez Louise.
I got bullied from 3rd grade to 5th grade by one guy.
I just imagine literally like the entirety of Ben's elementary career, like every day, it was just getting the shit beat out of him, like throughout the entire day.
She really enjoyed that prospect. She's like, everything makes sense now.
Did the bully like hit you in the arm or what?
No, I got punched in the face multiple times.
Punched you in the face? Like a full-on punch in the face?
You told me about this recently, and I was like, what's his name? I'm going to find him.
What does it feel like to get punched in the face?
You've never been punched in the face?
No, I talk my way out of every fight.
I've slapped him in the face.
Yeah, you fucking slapped the shit out of me. Still on my phone to get you back, you fucker.
Matt is like the Tyrion, you know? He uses his cunning and his wiles to avoid
I leap
conflict.
in there and I talk it down, and then I literally have a panic attack when I come down on the other side of it, and the adrenaline goes off, and I fucking collapse.
No, I got.
Tell you what, when I see you next, Matt, I'm gonna punch you in the face. It's better that it comes from me.
But no, why are you and Ben punching me in my face? You guys are my best friends. Why are you the only people hitting me?
It's a rite of passage, nerd.
I don't fuck you. I don't want it.
We're writing our own kids movie right now.
I didn't ask for it. I don't want it. Oh, it's too soon. That was too soon. I'm sorry.
Can I mention two movies really quick that I think were made for kids?
Shut up, nerd.
I don't know. Can you?
Beth, why don't you go smack that nerd?
Designed to penetrate.
God.
No, I just want to mention a couple movies that I think upon movies I have watched as an adult, and I think really interesting. They lean harder into the adult themes, but they're actually more appropriate for kids nowadays based off of sort of the cultural norms. And those two movies are The Secret of Nim and The Never-Ending Story, which I think both have great themes of like inclusion and kind of the anti, like embracing sort of the weirdness and the outsider in people, and really having like really positive themes. But those movies are scary as fuck.
Oh shit, Don Bluth, man, with Secret of Nim is one of the most frightening fucking things of all time.
And the Gudmore Wolfgang Peterson's The Never-Ending Story, that gave me fucking nightmares as a kid. But it was a kid's movie. I mean, The Never-Ending Story was considered a kid's movie.
Sure.
And
you know what?
But I would say once the girls are a little bit older.
Yeah, I really look forward. I think that they will love it. They're gonna flip their shit for Falcor.
Sure.
But like, it's still scary.
It's still a little scary and
a little sad.
I super fucking sad.
A little
the
sad.
Saddest moment in fucking film history.
Both of those are incredibly sad. I mean, like The Secret of Nim, basically the whole thing is about death. The story is about a grieving single mother whose husband died. Mrs. Brisby, whose husband died, and she's raising her kids on her. I mean, it's like the whole premise is just like this adult premise.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm like, I love all the themes in those movies, and there's nothing bad. There's nothing that I would consider, oh, that's controversial now, or that this was thrown in. Which honestly, to me, shows that they were well made. They were well intentioned movies back then. They didn't take any shortcuts,
sure,
or add any sort of. It was all well intentioned, but yeah, we can't show those to our kids now because they're just still too adult themed.
You know what animated rat movie fucked me up as a kid?
Wait, I think an animated rat fuck movie, but no, I'm sorry, not
Matt, can we clip that for as a soundboard bite? You know what animated rat movie fucked me up as a kid?
We're on subject.
That's definitely going to be a Slurred Sophisticate. Rat fuck movie.
American Tail.
That wasn't a rat. He was a mouse.
You mean the one about the Holocaust?
Listen, yeah, the Holocaust analogy, where all the Nazis were cats, and they effectively made those cats really scary.
Yep.
And it was, I remember the first, the first rousing number. There are no
cats in America.
And so they're leaving because they believe there's going to be no cats in America. And of course they're wrong. But they start off commiserating the mice and the lovers that they've lost. And the Irish mouse is saying he's immigrating from Ireland because he was engaged to the love of his life, and one day he left the house, and there's this one line that always will stick with me. He comes back, and her tail was all he left of her.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
he told like her tail, I think, or something like that's what he found, and he described it and started crying in the song.
I think I'm gonna start crying.
It's really disturbing.
I also really appreciate any movie that makes cats Nazis, because that's the most like perfect typecasting
That's true.
of all time.
Fuck cats.
Yeah, fuck cats. Exactly.
All right, let's be careful with your phrasing.
No, not the musical. Actual cats.
No, fuck the musical too.
This is the New Way podcast. We of course love Cats the musical.
Just wait until my Redux version of Mr. Mistopheles for Nick Santa Croce, asshole. That's coming. It's coming.
Frasier last night, as I am wont to do, watching Frasier, of course.
Oh, nice.
And there's this episode where like Frasier has this like hot fling with this producer, and then she tells him she's moving to Chicago, and of course he goes overly romantic and makes this incredible gesture to say, stay here with me, and let's see where this goes. And he convinces her to throw away her career and stay for him. And then, so they're talking, they're catching up, and go, well, now we really don't know a whole lot about each other. You know, what's your favorite color? And she go, blue. What's yours? Red. Oh, favorite musical. And Frasier goes, Candide. And he goes over to the girl, and she goes, Cats. And he just cuts to him, and that's the moment where you know where the plot's going. You realize the rest of the third act is him reneging on his love for her. I thought that was pretty great.
Well, that's us. That's us in our audience. You gonna talk about cats again? Yep. Okay. Click.
And now we've had our one per episode.
Now,
you did it.
Now, what about you, Beth? What other ones are on your revisit list?
I mean, we only watched one movie. Do you want that one?
Which we can discuss, I guess.
We watched The Wizard.
Oh my God! Are you serious?
Yeah, you called it.
Oh my God!
We watched that last night.
Yeah, well, because I brought it up and Ben was like, "Oh, that's a good one," and we were like, "We should watch that."
Because we haven't seen it since we were kids.
No, I've seen it. I own it.
Wow.
So
I hadn't seen it since.
Right.
So a funny story about. So Ben sent me a clip yesterday and said, if you can, don't listen to this clip." So I didn't. And then I was working on a project for somebody else today for the friend of mine that works in cannabis stuff. And they asked me to put together this like video thing, and I was building it for them. And she goes, I sent you all the files in email, and your email was stuck right in between her files and their stuff. So I just went through each email. I'm like, download.
Story.
So I make this video and I go, oh, she must have wanted this as the sound, like the sound behind the video. So I built this thing that's literally, it's just a flashing thing on screen that's like edible, joint, dab, vape pen, all of these different ways to have cannabis. And then this is what played, and I sent this to her, and this is what played behind it.
Jeez. I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
It's so bad.
No, and then there's laughing in the background, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this has to do with it.
That's
I guess like it's like, I don't know, like counterculture or something. So I sent it to her, and she goes, hey, that's great. What was what you said? I sent that file. Did my computer send you like? Is my computer possessed? And I go, and then I put two and two together, and I go, oh yeah, no, sorry, that was not meant for your thing. But I kept trying to figure out how those were combining, and I'm like, guess the kids are really back into the Wizard again.
I love The Wizard.
Have you watched it recently?
Every year I watch The Wizard.
Really?
Seriously?
I love The Wizard.
I too.
Well, it's very problematic.
I love The Wizard, but we were
both pretty appalled by it.
I have not seen it in years.
I have not seen it in many years.
So what happened? What are the things you object to?
Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, there's a little boy.
Okay,
the wizard,
wait.
Jimmy.
First off, let's explain the plot of the movie very, very briefly. A very disturbed child who nobody thinks is not disturbed. What's the word?
He's autistic.
No, he's not autistic.
Oh.
A traumatized child.
Isn't he autistic?
No.
The thing is, you don't know what's
Probably
wrong.
on the spectrum.
Hold on.
He's not on the spectrum.
He's not. Stop. Hold on. Let me just say this really quick. A traumatized child.
You don't know he's traumatized. Jimmy is just a
He's
weird.
He doesn't
They
talk.
think he's.
I mean, it's the pinball wizard, right?
No, no.
Shall
he
I
used-
let
he
Beth-
used to
I was
talk.
trying to
He
do a
used to-
5-second explanation of the plot of the fucking movie. The plot of the movie is there's a child who has something strange about him, but he can play video games really well. They go on a road trip, and they end up in Los Angeles at the Nintendo thing, and they play Super Mario 3, and he wins everything.
He is not autistic.
Savant.
No.
He's a video
Anyway,
game
so
savant.
within the first 5 minutes of the movie, the thing is you don't really know until the end of the movie why Jimmy's acting the way that he is. But so within the first 5 minutes of the movie, like 20 times they've been like, Jimmy's gonna go to the home.
Yeah, he's gonna go to the home. You're gonna send Jimmy to home? You're gonna let him live in the home?
Jimmy's in the home.
Well, yeah, we have to send Jimmy to a home. We can't send Jimmy to a home. Like if it was
we
a
were just
drinking
like-
game, we would have been passed out in the first 5 minutes.
And then I just thought about if my kids were watching it, they would be so confused
Because they're like, what's
a
home?
home?
The official plot description says he's a boy suffering from PTSD.
Which he is.
Which he
That's
is.
his.
Exactly.
That's his. So
Spoiler
he's not a-
alert.
He witnessed the drowning death of his sister.
Yes.
His twin sister.
Yeah.
So sad.
So sad. So
But no reason to put Jimmy in a home. Like he could have just had a therapist.
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead, the whole family's like, don't know what the fuck is wrong with this kid. He's a weirdo.
And so
And
everyone
he's like
throughout-
spending his
so
time
through-
playing video games
so-
to get away from his terrible family.
So throughout the course of the movie, everyone they're calling
I wanna
him
watch
brain
this movie.
dead. Like, do you have them
Oh,
listed? Because
no.
I wrote down some words that children called each other and adults called children, and different things they called each other were jerk, stupid, butthead, smartass, dork, moron, son of a bitch, miserable jerk, chicken shit.
I like miserable. That's such an old man thing. You're a real miserable jerk. You know that.
And then one redeeming thing, I put New Kids on the Block on the soundtrack.
Oh Lord, that's the one redeeming thing.
Well,
I remember it ends in Universal Studios Hollywood at
Yes.
on the tram ride. I remember
right, so
liking
these
that.
kids, I mean,
And
they
your
run
first
away.
ever look at Mario
hold
Brothers
on.
3.
Right, which was
True.
the most exciting. That I just remember.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason you wanted to see the movie and to get to
Yes.
see all that. I was just like so
And the Power
geeked
Glove.
about that. Yes, and the Power Glove and Lucas, who was hot, who's now a child molester.
Yeah.
What?
What?
Yeah,
Jesus.
Lucas, who unveils the Power Glove, was now a
he's
child
hot?
molester. Well, he was hot. He was the villain. Like I said, I had a thing for like 80s movie villains.
He's bad. How old was he?
He was older than me.
How's it feel? I just wanted to put that one on you. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, Lucas, touch me with your power glove.
Listen, I would have been down with that.
Of course you would have.
And then I also enjoyed, and I remember as a kid, like loving the fact that, the thing is, I feel like a lot of those movies from the 80s, like these adventure movies that I really loved and grew up on, a lot of times centered around boys, and girls were just kind of not important characters. And so I loved that there was a main character that was a girl throughout the whole movie.
It was a strong character.
Yeah. And then
I
I
had a crush
also
on her.
appreciated
Very good.
me too.
Yeah.
And I also appreciated that there were, even in the playoffs, there were girls in the playoffs, which I didn't remember, and they could have easily just made it all boys. But even the final three, one of the characters is a girl.
Did you want to
Yep.
know? They actually talked about in Console Wars the reason why they added a girl into the Nintendo of America. Insisted that they have a girl as the final three because there was a preconception at that point in 1988, 1989 that only boys liked video games. And that because they had the sort of the market cornered. And so that there's actually a note about that, like all these demands that Nintendo of America was making. Like, we have to have the adults playing the game. We have to have all of these other things like happening. Like, basically, Nintendo was saying, I mean, it's
To
a 90
license
minute,
it, yeah,
it's a 100-minute Nintendo ad is what that
Yeah.
movie is. So interesting.
It opened.
And a
it
cry
opened-
for better mental health awareness.
Oh, yeah. Poor Jimmy.
Well, yeah.
But what, the one thing that Beth mentioned to me last night, where I was just like, you know what? I wasn't even thinking along those lines, but the story is about two kids that run away from home, don't listen to their parents, and essentially live on the road as vagrants. And it almost
hitchhike.
And
They
hitchhike.
get, like-
and a glorified. They go with like a
They're like
bike.
scamming people. Yeah, they
Yeah,
ride
with
off with a biker gang.
It's just
Well,
like
Jenny Lewis knew Tiny, the trucker, because her dad was a trucker.
Do you
yeah. And at one point they get mugged by truckers.
think
Yeah.
if they had
Then she like falsely accuses someone of molesting her in public and like thinks it's funny to like get away with something. And I was like, there are just so many things I wouldn't want to teach my children or like have them.
That guy was evil.
He was evil, but she could have said other things like, hey, that guy's kidnapping my friend, instead of he touched my breasts.
Yeah.
I always thought of it like Jenny Lewis, she's thinking like you yell fire even when there's not a fire because it's sharp and cuts through the noise.
I get it. That's just not something you want to teach a kid, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to teach kids that it's okay to falsely accuse people because then it's terrible.
Do you think it would age better if they had leaned more into the pinball wizard like thing and made it a musical, like a rock musical for the 90s?
No, I mean it's pretty great.
Or
Nick just came.
Or is Nick Santa Croce going to write us the actual musical version of The Wizard?
They call me the Wizard.
I'm there already, right
But
there.
I do like how they invoke the name like not just once but multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
She first he's like he's like a wizard, and then later they're like, is this the wizard? And he's like, this guy's a wizard. It's like 7 times they say those like wizard, and so it's just like they almost normalized it at that point because
I love it. There's nothing I love more than when the title of a movie is spoken out loud in the movie. That's probably my favorite thing ever.
Well,
my name is Jimmy. My father is Mr. Wizard.
You'll like Space Camp then, because they're at Space Camp, so they talk about Space Camp
but
a
more
lot.
like when it's, I don't know.
I know there's some good ones.
Cool.
There's some good invoking of the titles in lots of movies. Yeah, well, it's funny. So you brought up Explorers, Ben, and Explorers is actually what led me to the third movie I watched on my list.
Daryl, right?
Because I accidentally, so I had seen a preview of Explorers, but I didn't remember the name, and I went to the video store, and I saw Daryl, and I go, that looks sort of like the preview I saw, so I'm going to rent this movie. And I kept waiting the whole movie for like when he builds a spaceship, which he doesn't, because Daryl, spoiler alert, is about a little robot boy who is built at a lab to be a killing machine, which seemed to be a big thread in both Short Circuit and Daryl, where the military were building robots for
bad guys
to basically beat the Russians. There was a big deal about the Russians.
And Small Wonder.
And Small Wonder. And Daryl stars the kid that played Bastion in Neverending Story, and he also was in Cocoon. Kid burned bright for like 7 years in the 80s and then left the business.
Well, didn't he kill himself?
No, he's alive.
No, he's alive.
He's alive. He's just he stopped acting. He literally had like a 7-year.
He's just dead.
He's just dead inside.
Are you thinking of Jonathan Brandon?
I am,
No, yeah, you're thinking of Jonathan.
No, she's thinking of Brad Renfro.
So
rest
Daryl's
in
got
peace.
Michael McKean in it, which is I always like to see a good Michael McKean performance. So he was still kind of shedding his
No
Lenny.
kidding, really?
He plays so the premise is that this kid escapes the lab, and the guy that gets him to escape has kind of erased his memory. So he just knows he only thinks he's a kid. And they pick him up, and there's a couple that have been trying to foster a child, played by Michael McKean and Mary Jo Williams. And they bring him in, and he's weird. Like, he's a little strange. He doesn't know certain things, doesn't know certain words, but he's also like, he can play a video game perfectly, and can play the piano perfectly, and he can do all of this other stuff. And so they keep him there, and then of course eventually the lab tries to get him back, and all these things too. But it was interesting to watch a lot of tropes that happen in these movies that are very similar. One, there was a big trope in the 80s for kids movies where I would describe these movies as where there's a visitor that comes and disrupts things. So E.T. kind of kicks that off in the 80s. You've got Mac and Me. You've got Batteries Not Included. You've got Daryl. You've got Short Circuit. They all have these same thing where these things come in. The thing always dies. Every single one of them, almost, they die and come back to life at the end. It's like it's a thing. There's a giant car chase always at the end of the movies. It's how you ended the movies in the 80s. What I thought was interesting about Daryl, it's kind of a sweet story with the family, although they sort of lose that thread towards the end a little bit. But there's a little kid character in it that as a kid, of course, I loved. His name is Turtle. He's the asshole little like best friend kid.
I like turtles.
Turtle.
Saw both of you licking your lips, just waiting to get that one out first.
I thought Beth was going to go for it too.
So he has some problematic lines in this movie. I'm going to play a couple things here.
This is QC. Come in, CQ. What is happening? Over.
He's watching his sister.
She's gonna start hooking any second, right in front of her own home. My God, she's shameless. Oh, this is disgusting. Censored, censor, bleep, bleep, bleep. My God, I'm too young to be looking at this. His filthy hand on her Levi's, touching them. Oh, look at that, just look at it. He's practically raping her, except she's cooperating. Turtle, will you shut up?
Knock it off, Turtle. It's almost midnight.
Now, there's a slight.
What?
There's a.
That was
First
all
off, that
one
was,
scene.
That was some bad acting,
The
too.
kid, the kid is terrible.
Yeah.
He's
It's like you cut 5 different scenes.
no,
together.
he's on a walkie-talkie with Daryl, with the robot
got
boy,
that.
and he's watching
got
his
that.
sister and her boyfriend outside, and he's just like watching what she's going. My favorite part of that whole thing is he describes this terrible thing that his sister comes in, which is the one he's calling the hooker, to yell at him, and his mom. She doesn't say, Turtle, stop making rape jokes. She goes, Turtle, knock it off. It's almost midnight. Like, if it was 11 o'clock, Turtle be still making rape jokes for another hour because that's the only thing that matters. But this was another just weird line in it here.
Yeah, could call Sherry Lee.
She went out with Mark Bennett.
What is she seeing that boy?
Sherry Lee says he's sexy, but Turtle says it's because he has the biggest.
Daryl?
So about to make a big dick joke, and there's a lot of weird ones like that. The parents are like, let's fool around. Like they're all of these like just euphemisms that are happening in front of all of the kids that are just kind of like, haha. And they're meant, and it's a movie for kids where like, what are we supposed to get out of, like, parents watching it don't want to hear Michael McKean be like, oh, let's get it on in a scene for like no reason. So why does it exist? Like, I just didn't get it at all. But it aged okay. I'd still probably show it. It's like it's Starman light.
Listening to those clips, I would not show that to my children.
So that's literally just one scene, and you pull most of Turtle shit out, and the movie's fine for kids. But I watched that as a kid, and it didn't like. I don't remember those moments from it, to be honest.
I don't remember. I remember seeing it and just kind of putting it away.
I probably remember him like spying the sister, and I was like, "Yeah, girls, blah blah blah," and then I like got over it, and it just didn't exist anymore. But
At
I don't
what
know.
age were you interested in girls?
27. I
was sexually active at 7.
Ben Tastycock. News at 6. No,
Hi, Scott.
No, by the age of 8, I wanted to have 10 sex every day.
That's true.
Ben was like, "Listen, woman, leave me. I need to watch another pre-code film to piss the people off listening to this show in the future."
For those who have made it this far in the podcast, a very funny thing is, for some reason, as a young child who didn't know about sex, I used to think it was like a rating scale. Like, if there was a girl who I was very kind of interested in, she would be 4. I wanted to have 4 or 5 sex with her. Where the
Have
best
we talked about
the
this
best
before?
would be
Did you not know this?
the best would be 10 sex.
Oh,
And
because
so-
his mom read his diary.
Yeah, so I wrote all this in my diary in 2nd grade. My mom read it, and that's how I got the birds and the bees talks. She was like, "This is what you want to have 10 sex?"
You had a diary?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
What else was in your journal?
Honey, you'll never last 10 sex.
It's true.
You have to be realistic.
I'm writing in my journal. Leave me alone. God, there was a lot
I said
to
that to Ben the other night, and then he laughed for a solid minute, as if I had invented the joke.
I was quite amused. I just didn't expect it.
Yeah, no, I think there was an age where I was interested in girls, but there was also the age that I still pretended to not like girls, so I didn't have to talk to my parents about that. That was a big thing. That would just like, I'd be like, "Oh, the kissing scene, gross," and I'd be like, I just didn't want to watch it with them.
I never remembered. There's no period in my life where I was not interested in girls. But
I mean, my Tom Hanks awakening would have been when I was 5. So whenever Bachelor Party came out.
Wait.
I lost interest in girls after the first season.
Nicholas Anacroce.
Just came in for a landing.
I thank you.
Do you know what we always say about Nick's jokes?
Designed to penetrate.
And that's it. They are designed to penetrate, every one of them.
It's true.
What else do you have on your list, Benny? Got anything else on there?
The one last one I wanted to mention that was my favorite movie for a short time where Ghostbusters was displaced was Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, me too.
Which actually, if we had not watched The Wizard, that's what I would have probably wanted to revisit because I haven't seen. I saw it maybe in like middle school or some ish, but I haven't. I saw that. I watched that movie incessantly.
It's been a while.
But I used to watch it over and over and over again. But I just remember the whole thing about there was like time travel involved where they came back. It came back and it was like years later, or they were like, I mean, I don't remember all the exact things, but I just remember there being like a resolution 30 minutes into the movie, and then you don't as a kid realize that it like you're like, oh, this is great, this is a happy ending of the movie, and then it's like everything's just completely fucked. And so I'm interested in
like
watching
Back to the Future too.
It is like Back to the Future too, but it's like Back to the Future 1 happens in the first 30 minutes of Flight of the Navigator, and then Back to the Future 2 is like the next act.
Yeah.
And I still remember just being so floored that it was just like he comes back and everything's wrong, like everything's not right in the world or whatever, and that he has to like go to like reconcile and like kind of come to terms with himself. But I just remember loving that movie so much, and I really do want to revisit it because it could be one of those ones that I could we could potentially show to the girls. However, still a giant talking like spherical UFO that flies through the air at Mach 10.
Voiced by Paul Rubens.
Was Paul Rubens the voice of that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Now, speaking of which, Nick, when was the last time you watched Pee-wee, the Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
I have it on my list.
Oh, that is something I've legitimately watched probably once a year.
Okay, so because I was curious, I'm curious. I have not seen it in a while, and
it's so good.
And when we were, when we were looking for a movie to watch with the girls on the weekend, that was one of the ones I was like, are they ready for Pee-wee? Yeah, we weren't like really sure.
Maybe.
What do you feel about that? How does that movie? No. What does that movie feel like today?
I mean, it's my top 5 comedies of all time.
I mean, no, but I mean, like from a standpoint of like showing to children and stuff. Like, do you feel there are moments in it you would be nervous or problematic or?
Well, I mean, the Large Marge reveal with the scary face is pretty scary.
Yeah,
I think the convict, Pee-wee lightens that up enough to where that I think is okay. The dinosaur scene with the scary clown is a little frightening. But they are played for laughs. And Pee-wee is just so ridiculous, and he always bounces back, and is always immediate palate chaser for anything that's scary or weird, and that's why Paul Rubens complimented Tim Burton so well. It never got too dark. So I would think about it, but I really do think that I think my kids could see that around the same time they could see Nightmare Before Christmas.
All right.
No.
Now, so I have
absolutely not.
So I have a question, kind of for kind of everybody in the room, but I obviously Ben and Beth with having the kids, this is going to kind of paint it a little bit different. But I think this is an interesting question for everyone. It was something that popped up in Daryl to me that I realized kids today don't stop. God damn it! It's just the worst. He's got a big Daryl, as they say in the movie. So there are tropes. So there's a big running gag in Daryl where the one friend calls his sister Hooky. And he goes, why do you call her Hooky? And goes, like hooker. She's with a lot of guys. And the kid goes, and Daryl goes, what's a hooker? This becomes a running gag. And he asks the mom, what's a hooker? At the end, when they have to prove that the computer is him, he makes the hooker line, right? And I'm like, as a kid, it didn't mean anything to me because we had cartoons. We had cartoons of the Looney Tunes age where you knew what a hobo was, you knew what a convict was, you knew what a hooker was, you knew what a wino was. You had all of these.
I don't know what kind of childhood you had, Matt.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the Looney Tunes, but Looney Tunes have hobos, they have winos, they have drunks, they have hookers, they have all of this shit, right? Like, as a kid, you knew what a hooker was. Like, that joke lands because a kid knows what a hooker is.
Beth saw Pretty Woman how many times as a child?
It was one of my most watched movies.
So do you think Margot and Luna...
Did you know what a hooker was?
No, and I knew I didn't get it, because thankfully it's not like a graphic movie.
Thankfully for you. I was a 10-year-old boy. I was waiting for a titty.
It was just...
Unfortunately for us, it was not a graphic movie.
Well, I watched it a lot, and because I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so I watched a lot of movies that my grandma liked. I knew she thought Richard Gere was hot, so I thought, oh, I'm supposed to be attracted to this man.
Yeah.
And I wasn't, and so I was like, well, I don't think this guy's cute. But I knew my grandma. He did it for her. But yeah, I knew I knew her profession or whatever. I knew she was called like a hooker, but I didn't really get what that involved.
I mean, I
don't think I knew what that was.
Maybe it's just me. All right, so maybe it's just me. Like, I knew what a hooker was. Like, I knew there was a woman that you paid a woman for. You never heard about the movie Milk Money? You guys never saw the movie Milk Money? Where the kids that pool their money together to see a hooker?
No.
With Ed Harris as the hooker?
No. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
I still got it. Like, I knew that they were getting paid, but I just didn't think...
You didn't understand the sex part of it.
Right.
I didn't connect the dots.
But you had an idea
knew, like,
that there was something like it.
I think you just grew up a little too fast, Matt.
No, I mean, you watched thing. Or did you know what like a stripper was? Or like a dancer? Like you guys watched? Do you not watch any
I knew
Looney
what an
Tunes?
exotic dancer was.
Looney Tunes had had burlesque girls and shit. Like this stuff exists in those cartoons.
I watched Tiny Toons.
Well, that didn't have as many hookers in it. So
man, I love Tiny Toons.
Oh, me too.
Would have been better if it had.
Tiny Toons.
What's your favorite character?
Tiny Toons Summer Vacation is one of the movies that I watched every day. I would come home from school. I would push the tape in the VHS player and watch the whole thing. And I think
Tiny Toons had the best musical.
Happy World Land, where the fun never stops.
I think maybe you just did better correlation, or you just thought more about these different things, because I never really thought about what was happening, like what the profession was. I knew that it was the impetus of whatever got them into the situation that they were in, and that was it. I never really thought about the context of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of where I'm looking at a lot of these movies to say, like, did you, like, Back to the Future, did you understand the guy on the bench was a homeless guy? Did you know what that was? Was that a thing that existed in your world?
Well, yeah, because I lived in Chattanooga. There were tons of homeless people at that time.
I mean, maybe that's okay. It's a little. I mean, there were a lot of things that I just knew as a kid that as I'm rewatching these movies, I go, oh, well, I saw this in popular culture. But see, you know what? The other problem is that I watched a lot of like sitcoms with my parents.
Fries.
Sorry, my tongue got tied. Right?
Matt's like, oh, have you ever seen you never seen a homeless person before? I'm like, there's a big difference between a homeless person and a fucking hooker. I mean,
they exist in some of the same places. I don't understand what's going on.
Apparently not where you lived.
Great French fries.
Listen, my friend. Look. There were a lot of like types in a town, but I think the difference is I watched a lot of sitcoms with my parents, and that was where I probably picked up a lot of those things.
That's probably exactly right.
But yeah, and I mean, and it was not like I knew like the intricacies of how a prostitute works or what a pimp. But when did you learn what a pimp was? Like, when did you learn all of these things?
I knew what a pimp was in probably middle school at some point. I don't know.
When you got your first taste?
When I got beat up by one. When my childhood bully decided...
Wait, you were getting pimp slapped. You weren't getting punched.
He was turning tricks.
Bitch, where my money at? Wilson. No, I don't know. Okay, so maybe,
like I said, I was sexually active at a young age.
I honestly think though this is part of where like our 3 to 4 year age gap does make a difference, in that I was watching a lot of shit in the 80s that, remember when I was a kid, like when I was 4 was when cable like became a thing. It was the first time anyone had cable and all that shit. So my parents were like, yeah, we have cable TV. We have this shit. Like they're not monitoring it. They don't know what's on there. They know I was watching Bachelor Party.
Ben was having sex when you were 4 years old.
Listen, I was sneaking into the living room to watch, my God, Tom Hanks get women naked in Bachelor Party, and then turn around and get fish women naked in Splash. And I was like, this guy knows what to do.
I don't believe that he was the one getting them naked.
Listen, the movies
he was just there.
The movies that had boobies in them also had Tom Hanks, and they were correlated. So the man's a god.
Beth, do you think Tom Hanks had sex in Big?
Oh, we haven't asked you this, have we?
I I think I've only seen Big once. I think Ben and I watched it together,
yeah.
maybe. I think he did have sex, and I think it disturbed me.
All right.
All right.
Do you
and
think
then
he
you had
did
sex
it?
with Ben, and it also disturbed you.
I don't believe he did.
We have an argument about this.
I would have to watch it again. I think I remember asking, like, did they have sex?
Since he was like 12 years old or whatever, that a lot the prevailing theory of the people who don't go along with what actually happened, which is that they had sex, is that because he was so young and didn't really understand how things work, that he couldn't have,
I think 12-year-olds know how things work.
I didn't.
Were you getting boners at 12, Nick?
Yeah, but I called them fun sticks.
Okay, well that's
and he still does.
Yeah, nothing has changed.
Kathy,
breakfast. honey, you're giving me a fun stick.
Please don't actually.
Nick has been so quiet all episode. He's like, I think I really dodged a bullet on this one. We've been going for an hour and 23 minutes. Nothing back good. Oh no!
I did say Whoopi Goldberg was in fried green tomatoes, though.
You did. That was one of the weirder tangents. I got to be honest.
I have not seen any of those films.
Well, and so it's funny is I think we can come back and revisit some of the ones we a little bit talked a little bit about, and it is very funny because Mark. So I will share a little bit of Mark. Mark's gonna hate that I'm gonna share this, but I'm gonna share it because it's sort of funny. Mark was like, I hope you guys are covering, and he mentioned like Beetlejuice, and he's like, and not some movie I never heard of that Ben's the only person in the world that's ever seen the movie. And I was like, right, just calm down there, Haas. It's fine. I don't apparently like not into the pre-code, any of the pre-code stuff because he doesn't get them. But no, I think that we purposely didn't hit some of the bigger ones because we have talked about them on the show before.
I mean, you guys talked about a lot of movies that I didn't really watch or can't remember.
No, and I think that's fine too. So those of you listening, and I will recommend, by the way, there's a very good counter episode to watch with this one. It is episode 71. It's called Unique Nostalgia. It's with Nick, me, and Kevin Thompson, where we talk about actually way off the board movies from our childhood. A lot of people. That's actually where Goof Troop first. A Goofy movie first popped up, I believe, on the podcast was in that episode. But definitely check out episode 71. We cover a lot of movies on the show, and I know you guys are always clamoring to hear us kind of cover other things. We're very happy to do it. Sometimes we've probably already gotten to it, or like if anyone like writes in and says talk about Alien or Aliens. You're just going to it's not going to happen. Well, I mean, Ben will do it, but just Ben for an hour on his own. But it's, we've
going to do a 10-part series just on different aspects of Alien.
We've covered a lot of them. By the way, also, I want to make a major note for those of you that listen to us on iTunes. This is kind of important. When you pull up our podcasts on iTunes, for whatever reason it is, it doesn't pull up all of the episodes in kind of like chronological order. It seems it skips around a bit. You actually have to scroll all the way down to the bottom of whatever list it's showing to you, and there's a bit where you can say show all episodes. That will show you all 102 episodes of the show we have. We do have the 31 not so listenable episodes with Ben and me, but we did cover animated films for kids and some of those and some other stuff. But we also, you know what, if you see a topic in our first 31 that you go, hey, I think that'd be a great topic for you guys to revisit or cover, we absolutely will.
Sure.
We are listening to you guys out there. We 100% want to do things you want to talk about.
And while you're there, would it kill you to leave a 5-star review? I mean,
yeah.
Would it kill you?
Not a lot of reviews. Not a lot of you maybe seeking us out on Spotify. That would also kind of help if you want to listen to us on Spotify. We get very few listens there. If you want to just take a break from the iTunes or your native Android app, check us out on Spotify. We could use the listens and get some stuff going on there.
So I think we do also have some fun games coming up in some upcoming episodes as well. So we're going to be doing a couple things I think that we've done in the past maybe, but maybe with a little bit of a new.
Well, and we have a big one coming up within the next probably 30 days or so, which is our Halloween the 3rd, where we are going to do our 3rd annual Halloween episode. We're going to figure out what we're going to do with Nick. I have a feeling there may be a care package sent to Nick with maybe
this is true.
Some instructions on things to do.
I think that we still are going to plan on having this episode occur, or the taping of this episode occur after Nick is in Japan and you are in China.
We're going to figure something out. If I have to, I will bring the equipment out to LA and record with Nick over the 2 days I'm there after China. But we'll figure something out. That's another option. We do a bi-coastal, because we are bi-coastal.
We are so bi-coastal.
We are way bi-coastal. We're like the Paul Mamelito of bi-coastals. But yeah, so are there any other movies on that note that anyone wants to talk about?
No.
Would you like me to read through my entire list of movies I wrote down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I want to hear kind of your thought process.
Without a breath.
When I was thinking, I was just making a list of movies that I watched as a child. Most, I think, are movies that were kind of appropriate for the age range.
Not Pretty Woman.
I did include Pretty Woman on here. Some of the movies that maybe weren't so appropriate were toward the end of my list. Cool Runnings, number 1, which I haven't watched very recently, but I do want to show to my children, and I think that they'd be all about it. I think they would love it as much as I do. You know, I love like a 90s sports movie. The Goonies, obviously. The Land Before Time, which my kids have watched. The Neverending Story.
It's another Don Bluth.
The Wizard, The Karate Kid, Adventures in Babysitting, The Little Mermaid was my jam.
And also, that opened opposite The Wizard the same weekend.
Wow.
Fun fact. My sister and mother went to see The Little Mermaid, and my dad and I went to see The Wizard.
Wow.
Maybe I did a double feature. I don't remember.
There you go.
Where was I? Oh, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Hook, Home Alone, Hocus Pocus, Free Willy, Mighty Ducks,
Hook,
Homeward Bound, My Girl, Addams Family, Beethoven, Curly Sue, Jurassic Park, Dazed and Confused, not a kids movie, but I love that movie, still do.
Richard Linklater again.
Wayne's World, True Beverly Hills, which I really wanted to watch to see if it's
I almost put that one back on. I was very close on that one.
I thought of it after we watched The Wizard, and then I was thinking about Jenny Lewis, and then True Beverly Hills. Mermaids, Hackers, War Games, Little Shop of Horrors, Steel Magnolias, Look Who's Talking, Beetlejuice, Gremlins, The Lost Boys, The Witches, which terrified me, Pretty Woman, and Coming to America. I watched that a lot.
And Hook.
What's funny is you mentioned Free Willy in there. That was directed by the guy that directed Daryl.
I watched Free Willy a lot.
That was, nothing is dated poorly about that, especially not the Michael Jackson music. Listen, we could do 7 more of these episodes for sure. And I think we probably will, especially as we start to show your kids more movies and kind
Invite
of find
them
out.
Yeah, they're going to be on the podcast.
First of all, I'm chomping at the bit for the first Margot and Luna reviews segment on this show. Anytime you want it, I will absolutely make that happen. I think it would be phenomenal.
I think we should just bring them in and have them record a little like 15-minute segment, and then we can find a way to edit that into a larger context.
Well, I think what's funny is because it does it shares the almost exact same properties with another segment that Ben and I have talked about for years, which is having Hoot Gibson describe a movie to us and guess what movie is he describing without the title being said. Much harder than Beth's game because you really don't know what's going to come out of anyone's mouth. But we have lots planned for you guys out there. Definitely some more cold readings, definitely some more musicals, more movie pitch game, all kinds of things. So thank you so much for listening. Absolutely send us more thoughts, leave some reviews. Maybe comment or slap a like on an Instagram post. Go listen to us on Spotify. Find us out. We're gonna keep trying to expand wider and broader and get some more listeners out there. So
visit our Patreon for all nude content.
yeah, exactly. If you want to see Nick's dick pic,
do you guys really have a Patreon?
Yeah, for Nick's dick pics.
I'm acting like I don't know.
Nick
no.
dick
Touche.
Like,
and on that,
like-
and on
like
that
Max
note,
I
Porn,
told you
like
when
Goofy
he
movie
first
porn.
when you first tuned in, I thought it looked a little familiar. So
Beth's name is Sally69 with the Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas that Nick's been flirting with quite a bit. So yeah, there's Nick's weird blurred out picture over there. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for Beth for coming into studio to record with us live and say her catchphrase.
Designed to penetrate.
And of course, thanks to Nick and Ben as always. We will talk to you on next episode of the New Way Podcast. Yay! And cheers.
Cheers.
Beth, what did you think of the episode?
it was all right.